Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. So, hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation on Guardians of the Greenway, Protecting Lincoln's Salt Valley Greenway. My name is Lauren Smith, and I'm an AmeriCorps member serving with Conservation Nebraska's Common Ground program. Conservation Nebraska's mission is to protect our state's natural legacy by educating the public, supporting communities, and increasing civic engagement, which we accomplish through locally led education efforts and community engagement projects to address local conservation concerns. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, there are a few rules to go over for those joining online. Your cameras will remain off and you'll be muted throughout the presentation. Please type any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A section, and we will answer those at the end of the presentation. Following the presentation, we will have a very brief survey that should only take less than a minute to complete. The survey helps support programming like this one, so we very much greatly appreciate you taking the time to fill those out. Tonight, we welcome Travis Jensen, who is the Community Conservation Coordinator for Solidago Conservancy. I will let Travis introduce himself and take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Lauren. And you can hear me okay? Thumbs up? Excellent, great. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to speak with the group this evening. It's really exciting. I love the work that we do, and I love talking about it with people. So I'm honored to be asked to be here. As Lauren mentioned, I'm the Community Conservation Coordinator for Solidago Conservancy, and I'll talk more about what all that means, obviously, for the next 40 minutes or whatever we have. And a quick background about me. I come to this work not as a lifelong conservationist in terms of profession. I had a career in education. I was 8 years. I was a high school English teacher, and after that, then I started working as a university administrator at Nebraska Wesleyan University. I did that about 17 years. And then I was getting to the point where I was frankly, I was kind of wearing out on education, and COVID sort of accelerated all of that. And about that time, I had an opportunity to work sort of in a really different environment in a different area, and that's working with Solidago Conservancy. And as I said, I'm honored to do this work. It's extraordinarily gratifying. It allows me to do the kinds of things that I love doing in education: teach people, talk to people, communicate ideas, and think about the future. And so it's kind of the best of all worlds. Plus, it gives me an opportunity to go out in the field and tromp around the prairie and wander the woods and all those kinds of things. So anyway, the title of my talk tonight is, as you can see, is Conservation Through Collaboration, and that's definitely what I hope you to get as a recurring theme throughout this. Theme is a good English teacher word, but I think I'll be repeating that numerous times. But that is definitely something that I have learned through my work with Solidago, working with our partners. It takes collaboration. That said, I have to say, I had come up with this title, and then I got the Zoom invite, for this. And at first I thought, what's Guardians of the Greenway? Where'd that come from? And so sort of unbeknownst to me, I thought, oh, well, okay, I guess I'll take that. And so, maybe, oops, now here we go. I need to advance the slide. So, maybe instead of, Guardians, or maybe instead of collaboration and conservation, and this is the full extent of my photoshopping ability, Guardians of the Greenway. I thought I'm going to embrace that, and you can see me, I've got really great pecs right there. So anyway, thanks for indulging me in that. So once again, though, conservation through collaboration, that's definitely the main message of the evening. So first, a little bit about Solidago Conservancy. Solidago Conservancy is a nonprofit land trust. We were formed about 2021, 2020, right in that area. Sort of depends on when you start the clock. But we were formed as a non-profit land trust to work as a private conservation partner. And partner, again, is an operative word here, because we're certainly not doing this work alone. And in fact, we're kind of late to the party, but we feel like we can fulfill an important role there. There was a long-time strategy in the Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan to create a local private land trust who could be nimble and assist in real estate transactions when they became available. The Lincoln Parks Foundation, and those of you who aren't familiar with Lincoln, Lincoln has a fantastic network of parks. We have wonderful trails, and it's really supported by the community. It's one of the things that makes Lincoln Lincoln, and a great place for people to live. And that's supported by the Parks and Recreation Department, and then financially supported by the Lincoln Parks Foundation. And several times over the years, the Parks Foundation served as a quasi land trust, but to work on real estate transactions as they became available. But organizationally and financial structure of that organization really wasn't set up for land trust work. And so again, years ago, decided that we really need to have this. And so again, in 2020, 2021, we were formed, but we are still very closely and actually officially affiliated with the Lincoln Parks Foundation. As some of you, probably a lot of people on this call know, Solidago is the Latin name for the Nebraska state flower, the goldenrod. And I didn't know that because I was coming at this as an English major. I thought, Solidago, how do we even say that? And then I started doing some research and I realized, oh, and it also means to make whole, which, as I hope you will get out of this presentation this evening, that's definitely our guiding flame, right? Is we want to make things whole as much as we can. And so it seemed a very fitting name, especially given that it's our state flower. And then really our mission is listed here. We ally with partners to conserve and connect, both those words important, a resilient landscape for generations to come. And I love this image to the right here. That's the generation to come, and they're coming right at us. They're coming right for us. So we want to make sure that we leave this area and in this environment in Lincoln and Lancaster County and perhaps surrounding counties. We want to leave it somewhere it's something really useful and beneficial to them. I mentioned that it takes collaboration, and this is absolutely true. We ally with these partners, and some of the main partners that we work with are the City of Lincoln, especially the Parks and Rec Department, but not exclusively the Parks and Recreation Department. The Lower Platte South Natural Resources District. In fact, the city and the Natural Resources District are both organizations that support our work financially, which is wonderful. We also work with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, the Saline Wetlands Conservation Partnership, and of course, private organizations like National Audubon Society, Friends of Pioneers Park Nature Center, Friends of Wilderness Park, and I guess organizations like Conservation Nebraska. And so again, collaboration is key. And so we have this partnership with these public agencies like the city and the NRD and the county. But of course, we have some private organizations too that we work with, even large ones that, even though they're private, they might be so large or not structured such that they can be flexible or quick moving for funding and real estate transactions. And again, this is where we fit into that whole puzzle. Is we're a fast moving entity that can see and seize opportunities when they make themselves available. And of course, part of what we do, and this is all part of the generations to come thing, is we help seek long-term funding support for resource conservation and land stewardship. And as you know, or if you don't know, as you can imagine, this takes a lot of funds. This takes a lot of resources. And this is part of our mission as well, is to help, bolster those things so that we have the funds in place going forward. And of course, in doing all this, we cultivate relationships with, well, certainly landowners. A tremendous amount of the area of Nebraska is privately owned, and we work with landowners. And there are plenty of landowners out there who are very interested in the kind of work that we do and want to preserve, connect the landscape. They see it as their duty and their mission to help, make sure that things stay healthy. We also work with other conservation organizations, as I mentioned, again, public agencies, and then other partners and individual like partner organizations, foundations and everything else. And then of course, community members. We're very, very lucky to have really excellent support. And really, we're relatively young, as I mentioned, and up until recently, we've been kind of flying under the radar. But even so, we've managed to, I guess, capture the attention and the interest of people who are interested in the kind of work that we're doing. And then, so we really focus locally, but we are also part of a larger national network where we belong to the Land Trust Alliance. We're members in good standing. And so we're able to share strategies for how land trusts can help advance conservation efforts. And we work with people from all over. I was part of the Network for Landscape Conservation, if you can see my mug there. This was a grant that we received a couple of years ago, and I was able to work with people from like all corners of the United States of all sorts on what are the best practices, how can we go about doing this work smarter and better and more efficiently. And that's really been super for me as a person coming at this rather late in life, but eager to soak things up and learn. And so really, I guess all of that to say that the core of our work, if you boil it down, is we're really building relationships with partners and landowners. And it's all about relationship building, and it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes goodwill. And we try to deliver on that. And then also, as a purpose of that relationship building is to hopefully, when there are moments where there are real estate transactions that could conceivably take place, that we're able to help navigate those sometimes complex kinds of transactions. And then, of course, identifying the funding to support those conservation efforts. Now, maybe I should have done this earlier, but again, for those of you who are from the area, this is probably going to, you probably already know this, but our work is focused on the Salt Valley Greenway. We are the guardians of the Greenway, right? So let's take a look at that area. So I like this map, even though it's very much a conceptual map. I mean, yes, you can see the community. Wish I had a pointer. I'm pointing at my screen, which is useless for you. But I guess I could, well, it doesn't really matter. So anyway, this map gives a general idea about this large vision for the area. And we refer to this as the Salt Valley Greenway and these connecting corridors that come through. Obviously, the prominent thing that you see right there is that circle of green, that emerald necklace that surrounds our community. And again, this isn't including everything. There are a lot of bike trails and walking trails, and there's a whole spider web of networked corridors that are within the city as well. This is mostly just kind of to give you an idea of the areas that Solidago specifically is working on. But as I mentioned, this has been part of the community vision since the 1950s. I mean, think about it. It's remarkable. And thank goodness that those people were thinking ahead, because without that kind of pre-planning, none of this would be possible. And really, this has become, as I say here, an environmental framework for a thriving community. And if you live in Lincoln or have been to Lincoln, you know that it is a thriving community. And we have these great things to offer. And again, and I am sorry to just keep repeating this, but I want to make sure that you understand that these are building on long-standing relationships and the work that people have been doing for decades, truly decades. I don't want anybody to leave thinking, oh goodness, Solidago, they're saving everything single-handedly. Absolutely not. We're merely a catalyst to getting these things accomplished when we have the opportunity, and we see ourselves as conveners to bring all these partners together. And then in terms of like what we look to do, protection and connection, those two things of prairie, wetlands, riparian corridors, and then parks, open space, and trails. And this evening, I'll talk about all of those things to a certain extent. One thing that you'll see is you've got these fingers of green that sort of go out from that dark green emerald necklace. And again, this is a watershed based depiction of what our environment is looking like. And those of you, if your screens are large enough and if you're familiar, you're probably seeing some familiar things, which is great. The areas that are in yellow, starting at the north, the Little Salt Creek corridor, and then going to the west and the south, Prairie corridor and Haynes Branch, and the Salt Creek South Link, which is always hard for me to say. Those are, we've identified those as our focus areas for our work within for Solidago. Now, it's not saying that that couldn't broaden, and we certainly have worked with people in other areas. We've talked with people at Prairie Pines. We've worked with people in the 9 Mile prairie and environs areas, and elsewhere, frankly. But in terms of like the core of our mission, it's those three areas. Who knows, in 10 years, maybe it'll be broader. In 20 years, it certainly would be broader. We're a new and pretty small, you're looking at 1/3 of the staff, and we're all part-time. So we're getting a fair amount done given our rather lean organization, but all of it comes down to having a focus. And it's those three areas, those priority greenways, they're our primary focus, but not our sole focus. So in terms of our goals, the number one thing is to conserve natural spaces and connect community. We're not doing this in isolation. We're not, conserving natural spaces and, putting up walls around them so that people can't see them. We really want people to get out into nature. So again, expanding that network of greenways throughout the area. Again, mostly around Lincoln, but certainly going out into Lancaster County. Also connecting parks and trails. One of the projects I'll talk about tonight is a great example of that, connecting parks and trails and giving future residents an even richer experience. Supporting habitat corridors. That, of course, is a huge part of what we do. We know that habitats tend to do better when they're in larger landscape-sized kinds of pieces, not like 5 acres here and then it's another 3 acres 10 miles away. I mean, that doesn't really work. What we really want to do is have a broad and robust network of corridors for habitat. And of course, a lot of this work comes down to protecting the floodplain. This is actually some of the first work that was done in the area, like in Wilderness Park, was flood mitigation, and had the added benefit and bonus of being able to enjoy some of those spaces, and that's for sure something that still drives us. But again, going back to an important aspect of this is connecting people with the land. We really want to make sure that people in our community are seeing and are enjoying what's available to them. So I'd like to quickly, and I'm kind of checking my time. I guess we're all right on time. Quickly highlight 3 projects that illustrate our work over the last couple of years. And these are, I'm circling in red here. One up north, this is just north of Interstate 80 and North 27th Street, if you're familiar with Lincoln. And then another is down by sort of off of Old Cheney Road. This is part of the Prairie Corridor project. And then the third project that I'd like to focus or kind of bring to your attention is something having to do with Spring Creek Prairie, one of our key partners down the Prairie Corridor and Haynes Branch area. So I'll continue on. And again, our roles is throughout all of these, well, I shouldn't say all of them. Each project is different, but all together, there's always been landowner outreach. We've assisted with that. Now, some of the landowner outreach has been happening for years, like far predating Solidago, but it's something where Solidago then sort of took that torch and carried it further. But again, long-standing work. Certainly partner collaboration, there's that word again. This is where Solidago's role is to get all the partners in the same room, figuring out how to approach these situations to maximize what we can do. This popped into my head, a great illustration of this. One of the projects that we'll talk about on the north part of town, I will never forget. I was in a meeting with all of our partners. It was a big meeting. There's like 20 people in there. And sometimes it's just magic how ideas are bouncing around and we were kind of stuck on this one problem. And then one person said, and kind of threw out this idea, and it was just absolutely transformative. And then we were able to like take that idea, and Solidago sort of helped make that a reality. So I'll get to that later. All right. And then when it comes down to it, these three projects all involve purchase of land. And so Solidago took the lead in making those offers and the negotiation for all of those parcels that we're going to be talking about. We provide technical support in terms of like coming in and working with other experts in the area to figure out, what needs to be done, what can be done, what concerns do we have as far as like for the whole partnership, and we work on that. I will say, and I should have said right away, as I mentioned, I'm one of three people that work with Solidago. Our executive director, Nicole Fleck, too. She's fantastic, and she's like a technical support wizard. She came from a full career at the city of Lincoln in planning, and then Parks and Recreation, and then special projects. And she has a whole background in all of this. And I remember I'm an English major, so I don't have that expertise. So this is where Nicole really came in and helped. And she also knows everybody. So that's one of those things that's really great. And then Bailey Wood is the third member of our team, and she works with development. And she's been great because, as I mentioned, all this takes tremendous amount of resources. And we're always looking to figure out how we can get those things coming through. So, and then there have even been cases where Solidago served as an interim landowner while the rest of the process, sort of unfolded and came together. That's not something that we're really geared to do long term, at least right now, because then you get into questions of management and personnel and all those kinds of things. It's just a much more involved deal. But in the cases of, well, all three of these, Solidago held the land for a short amount of time. Well, some were shorter than others, until all the other pieces came in and were put in place. And then we were able to step back and say, there you go. I'm being a little disingenuous. The one that happened down in Prairie Corridor, the southernmost one, we were an interim landowner, I think, for like 1 minute while the whole real estate transaction kind of went through. But that's so the other two though were definitely we filled that. And then also when it comes to sometimes these parcels, as one of the examples I'll show you, we ended up dividing a parcel and then transferring to a partner or partners in some cases. And so that's something that we were able to do. So I'm going to jump on ahead to make sure we kind of get up to the point of where we're going to talk about these three projects that so nicely illustrate what we do. So conservation priorities and progress. I wanted to just take a quick step back to see kind of why we're doing what we're doing and the progress we've made. I love this image. This is Shoemaker Marsh up north of town. And again, this is just, depending on where you are, like in 20, 30 minutes away, and it's like this other world. It's just fantastically beautiful. And it's a great example of the amazing accessible places that we have in our community. So just, check it out next time you're in that area. All right. And so, I want to frame why and where we do this work and how we focus and prioritize. So this map is a little, well, it's tiny, and I apologize for that. It's a little busy, but again, conceptually, I think it sort of illustrates what we have going on here. I'll reiterate, longstanding public-private partnerships. This is work that's been being done for a long time. And in terms of the work, it comes down to land acquisition, acquired by, usually public partners, not always public partners. And then, but also conservation easements. And so if you kind of look at the key at the bottom, the pink indicates ownership. And so like that would be things like, well, you can kind of guess where those would be. And then ownership and easement is sort of that darker gray. Blue is easement only, so a conservation easement. and then Greenway and Links is sort of to give you an idea of where all that fits in, that lighter gray fits into that earlier map that we saw with the Emerald Necklace map. So when you think of the state lakes, those are in pink, whether it's Branched Oak or Pawnee or Conestoga, etc. Pioneers Park and Spring Creek Prairie, Audubon Center, those are in pink. Um, Conservation easements around Spring Creek Prairie are in blue. So again, those are that's a whole other topic we could spend hours on, is how conservation easements or conservation agreements can be employed to conserve areas and still, they remain in private ownership, but it still preserves the resource for our, for a broader good. And then, as you can see, sort of three priority resources come up, and this is prairie, whether that's unplowed or reestablished prairie, wetlands, and riparian corridors, as we mentioned earlier. So again, there's all kinds of connecting greenways, some things that aren't really shown on this map. Things like Beal Slough or Antelope Creek, Dead Man's Run, those greenways that kind of go within the city of Lincoln. Again, this map is a few years old. We haven't really updated it, but it gives you an idea of kind of how this jigsaw, this part of the jigsaw puzzle kind of comes together. So again, there's one of the things that we'd like to talk about is like, okay, tallgrass prairie, we hear about this a lot, and I'm not going to read all this slide to you, and I'm guessing many of you already know this, but the tallgrass prairie of our area is really one of those things that we just, there's so little of it left. And of course, once it's gone, it's kind of gone. I mean, you can reestablish some things, but just some tiny fraction of what used to be there. And then obviously there's other benefits to having tallgrass prairie, carbon storage, that sort of thing. And then, it's one of those resources that we're really unique and we're really fortunate that we have this in our area. And so we want to always try to, remember that and take advantage of that. And so, this is already noted, the comprehensive plan and the city's climate action plan, I guess I didn't mention that earlier, note the need for a local land trust to help promote and to save these kinds of things when possible. All right, so one thing I've talked about a fair amount is that the Prairie Corridor and Haines Branch is maybe the most, up to this point, kind of the largest, the highest profile kind of area that people who are interested in this kind of work tend to be familiar with. And so in a very nutshell kind of information, Prairie Corridor and Haines Branch is this 10-mile tallgrass prairie passageway with connecting trail. By 10 miles, it's sort of crow flies, it's not an exact number, obviously. But we've managed to conserve a significant number of acres in the area. And the sort of the overall vision is that this corridor would link Pioneers Park Nature Center and Spring Creek Prairie Audubon Center south of Denton, and sort of goes through Denton. And we've made really great progress over the years on this. As this map to the right shows, we have some areas where there, this ultimately the long-term vision is there would be a trail so that you could get on that trail in Pioneers Park and just keep walking and just keep biking and end up down at beautiful Spring Creek Prairie. And if you haven't been to either or one of those places, you really need to check them out because they're really stunning. And so there are places where trail is already built and established, and there are places that are depicted on this map in the dotted line where sort of conceptually it probably go through these areas. Now, clearly, the line, the yellow line and the yellow dotted line, they don't all link up. We're continually working on this as things become available. We try to expand this and get an idea. So, like for example, if you look at the prairie or the corridor public access points, number 8 at Two Creeks Prairie. It's kind of sort of toward the north there. Well, that was Solidago's first project. We were able to add an addition to Two Creeks Prairie that got us that much farther closer to Pioneers Park. And now we've got a parking area where you can access that. Now, again, as far as like, are you not going to be able to walk to Pioneers Park yet? But we hope to someday be able to accomplish that. Okay. Let's see. Yep. Same map, as you can see. This is progress on this prairie corridor since 2013, and that's when the Prairie Corridor project was really like launched. And this was a concerted effort with the city and the NRD and our partners at the National Audubon Center, or Society, who own and operate Spring Creek Prairie. And so since 2013, these things have been accomplished, and that's really we're pretty proud of that. And again, a lot of that was accomplished before Solidago existed, but we've managed to move the needle even more in our few years of involvement. And then in terms of other progress, because a lot of people, when they think about this, they think of the trail, like, is the trail built? Are we ready? Can I go walking on it? And well, not yet. Or you can in parts, but you're not going there yet. But again, one of these days, and hopefully soon, we'll be able to make some additional strides toward connecting this whole thing. Right now, we have 5 out of 6 trailheads in place. We have 4 miles of trail that have been constructed that you can walk on. Some of that's in Spring Creek, some of it's in Pioneers Park. And then the other easements that we show with a dotted line, those are secure. We're just figuring out where those are going to go. And as resources are available, we'll keep building those trails. So, and again, as I said, it's about 10 miles as the crow flies, but it really, in terms of like the twists and the turns and everything else, it ends up being about 14 miles, something like that. It sort of depends on where we go. And that would include a link to Conestoga Lake over to the west. That would be a lovely way to get to and from that area. All right, so let me get into some of the recent work that we've had. The Prairie Corridor recent additions. I will say I'm pretty proud. I took this photo. This is our first project. There was 80 acres of land that suddenly became available. It was one of those things where a family situation had changed, and the people who owned the land, they weren't necessarily interested in keeping it. They were interested in selling it, and they wanted to sell it quickly. And they were open to the idea of selling to a conservation organization such as ours. So we worked with that family, and one morning when I went out to go look at the property, the sun was rising. I said, "Oh, well, isn't that stunningly beautiful?" And so I snapped that photo on my phone. So essentially what happened was, as I say, the family said, well, yeah, we're interested. There was some negotiation back and forth, and yeah, well, we're interested, but it needs to happen by the end of the year. And that was in October. And if you know anything about real estate transactions, they don't happen quickly. But I am very proud to say that the final document was signed and sealed and delivered on December 28th. So the family was happy, our partners were happy, and of course we were thrilled because we were able to fulfill our mission. So that is what we call the Two Creeks Prairie addition, 40 acres added on to existing land of Two Creeks Prairie. And actually, the story behind Two Creeks Prairie itself is also fascinating, but I want to be mindful of the time and make sure we leave enough time. And then, this kind of zooms in on that area, and this is number 8 up at the top. So you can kind of see that we added that in there. And the city and the NRD have been working on that area right now, clearing a lot of cedars. You don't see them in this picture, but other part of the property there was, and getting it ready so that people can really enjoy that. And then another area, oh, yeah, I forgot I have my little doodads there. Then the second was a really exciting project, and this is the mayor, Mayor Leary and Gaylor Baird, and then to the right, or to her left, is Megan Sittler. She's the executive director of the Spring Creek Prairie Audubon Center. And then you see Dave Landis with the Lower Platte South NRD to the far left, Crystal Stoner with National Audubon, and then you can just see the top of the head of Nicole Fleck too is our executive director, and this was at a ceremonial fence cutting, sort of like a ribbon cutting, where we were celebrating the addition of 310 acres to Spring Creek Prairie. That was really exciting. And Nicole's the one looking back. She's got it figured out. And oh, the other person that wasn't in the top picture, you see Maggie Stuckey Ross in the green. She's the director of the Lincoln Parks and Rec department. So Lincoln Parks Rec, Audubon, Solidago, NRD, and the city, we're all working in this together collaboratively. And that's down adding that large rectangle there, 310 acres to Spring Creek Prairie. And once again, we were really honored to be part of that project. And then moving away from the prairie for a moment, obviously, if you know anything about our area, we have amazing wetlands. In particular, we have eastern saline wetlands, which are quite, quite unusual. This is marsh wren. This is up north of town. And as my slide notes here, there's all these bird species. The Salt Creek tiger beetle is in this area. This is the only place on Earth. It's one of the most endangered critters out there. And so a lot of these are up north of Lincoln and really not that far from the city. So obviously you have to do things to protect those resources. And so again, the Saline Wetlands Conservation Partnership was a key partner in all the work that's been done over the years. And that partnership, it's the Lower Platte South NRD, Game and Parks, Nature Conservancy, the City of Lincoln, USDA, NRCS, Lancaster County, Pheasants Forever. I mean, it's this whole conglomeration. So it's like collaboration within a collaboration. So again, that's the key word with tonight's presentation. And so I'm happy to say that, oh yeah, I'm sorry, this is where we're talking about up in the north part of town. So the Saline Wetlands Conservation Partnership, they've been working collaboratively, sort of in an organized fashion since 2003. And you can see their goal is to no net loss of saline wetlands. And they've done really amazing work. And we're just trying to, continue that work and facilitate whenever we possibly can. And this picture is taken at Shoemaker Marsh, Frank's Shoemaker Marsh, also north of town. So we've made some progress. And again, I won't necessarily read all these, bullet points to you, but, we've done conservation of habitat. There's been research, there've been restorations projects. And very excitingly, because again, this is part of our mission is to get the public there, increasing public access so that people can see these amazing places, witness the flora and fauna that, is pretty unusual and pretty unlike what they're going to see anywhere else in the world. So it's a great opportunity. A recent addition, and this is super exciting. This was our most recent project, and this completed, it was after couple of years of work, really, when it came right down to it. And it came to fruition in 2024, July of 2024. And I'm not sure if you can see this, but this was a parcel. It's about 150-ish acres, something like that, if I remember right, just north of town to orient you. So you've got the interstate and then Interstate 80. And then just a little bit north of that is Arbor Road, and north 27th Street kind of goes along what you would see on the right side of this screen. Anyway, after years of conversations with landowners and negotiation and everything else, Solidago was able to purchase that whole piece of land. And then what we did was we divided it. I mentioned earlier, this is one of our roles, divided into three parcels or parts. A public agency office site, active park site, and conservation parcel. And the active park site is probably going to be the highest profile, at least, for a while. That will become Lincoln's next community park, like community-sized park. It's a good, big park. Not quite as big as Pioneers Park, but pretty big. So all the kinds of things that you would imagine in a community park, ball fields, structures, those kinds of things, soccer fields, and everything else and it'll be lovely. And one of our major partners in being able to secure this land was Cornhusker Bank and the Dittman family, who they're part and parcel of the Cornhusker Bank. And you can see in the picture at the lower left there, that's during a press conference where the mayor was there, members of city council, of course, the Dittman family, and then all the partners being represented there too. It was like 197 degrees that day, and it was so funny. We had all these trees, but no one thought to put all these poor people in the shade. They're all about wilting at the end. But they all made it. They all survived. Well, anyway, so there's the Cornhusker Bank Park, and then the public agency office site, the little square, the 11 acres there, that will become the new home for the Lower Platte South Natural Resources District. They have been thinking for a while about moving to a different location. If you've ever been to their current office, they've definitely outgrown it, and it's not particularly interested. They're sort of in an industrial area, kind of industrial and residential. But they saw this as an opportunity to build a new building there where if they want to do educational programming, they don't have to load people into buses. They can just say, let's just go out this door. And they have ready access not only to the active park, which is nice, but that's more like a park thing. But then the conservation parcel, the 85.5 acres roughly, that sort of wraps around three sides of it. That includes the Salt Creek tiger beetle habitat and the saline wetlands to the north, the northeastern part of that. And it's just this beautiful, walking through this waterway, really lovely riparian corridor, and it's going to be a tremendous asset, and that will always be sort of a more natural kind of area that people can enjoy. And of course, this is, you've got the active park side where they'll have play fields and passive use areas and things like that, and picnic tables. But then also this is all going to eventually be connected to our award-winning trail system, which is very exciting. And again, we're sort of viewing this as like a conservation campus, this whole area with the city and the NRD sort of working together on that. And so, and we love the idea that we could preserve those natural areas around the perimeter of the park. And in fact, and it's really preliminary, but the city of Lincoln is working with the Otoe, Missouri people as a possible commemoration and ceremonial space being sort of incorporated into part of that conservation parcel, especially to the north and west quarter of that. And it's a really exciting thing. And this all came together as kind of this innovative public-private funding effort. Uh, there were state funds, there were local funds, there were private funds, there was even federal funds, which were we were worried about whether or not we were actually going to get those or not. And we did. That all came together. So very exciting. Love that whole project. And I think it's going to be one of those things that people will see for forever. And they'll think, oh, yeah, this is great. Now, I realize I'm running kind of low on time. I want to make sure there's time for questions. But I've mentioned a couple times now, riparian corridors, like why do we need to, conserve those and make sure that we have healthy riparian corridors? Well, clearly flood storage, stormwater conveyance, stream health, and these connections for wildlife to move throughout the area and the region. These things, we have to take measures to make sure that these are, being preserved and conserved and connected. And of course, then we have the added bonus is they make natural corridors for trails and public recreation. I mean, when people think about great parks in Lincoln, well, Wilderness Park is a huge example of that. And everybody loves Wilderness Park, and rightfully so. And that again is a good example of this kind of area that we like to take advantage of. Again, sort of where I don't even know why I drew that red circle. It's pretty much everything, but we've got these great corridors that sort of span and web throughout everything. Wilderness Park alone protects 1,500 acres of riparian floodplain along Salt Creek. If that wasn't there, if that work hadn't been set up years ago, I think we'd have some problems downstream in Lincoln. And we also see some opportunities to extend the Greenway to the south. Right now, Wilderness Park ends at Saltillo Road. we're interested in seeing if maybe we can conserve some areas south of that even. And but there's some progress that has been made, relatively recent progress. And I will say, full disclosure, Solidago didn't have any direct involvement in these things, although sort of tangentially or coming in from the side. The Rock Island Bridge over Salt Creek, the Cardwell Branch Crossing, and the Ropey Road and Highway 77 Bridge. These are examples of the kinds of progress that has been made and we would like to continue to see made. And we are excited with the prospect of being part of it. And then in terms of recent additions, again, we've got these areas that are depicted on the map here. And, we're always looking for ways to sort of create buffers around parks. We're helping sort of we're part of the conversation in the Wilderness Park sub-area plan, and there's a watershed study that's underway, and we're sort of working on that too, again, with our partners. So. And I think that's about it. So again, collaboration, that's the key. Conservation through collaboration. It's got to happen. And so if you have, oh, I know one thing, like if you're thinking, well, how can I help? What can I do? Well, yeah, get the word out. Connect us with people who have the same passion. If you have landowner friends, or maybe you're a landowner in a priority area that we identified, and you think, oh, maybe Solidago can help me realize my goals for my area, let us know. Obviously, we're always in need of resources. Not, I guess I'll just say it. We need money. Everybody always needs money. Is one of those things. You can also find us at solidagoconservancy.org. If you've never checked out our website, I strongly suggest you do so. It's objectively beautiful. It really is. It's gorgeous. A lot of great photography, a lot of great videography. There's some embedded videos. You should watch a couple of them. If you watch the one with the Stiefel family, the two older people, I'm telling you right now, have your tissues ready. It's just absolutely, it's heartwarming. It's so sweet. They are wonderful people. But if you watch all the videos, you'll probably recognize a lot of people from the local community. And you can always sign up for information by contacting info@solidagoconservancy.org, or you can always email or call me directly. And I'll give you my, well, actually, I'll go to that right now. My email address is travis@solidagoconservancy.org. And there's my number. I'll put this up in a second, but let's go back. All right. Is it question time?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Travis. That was
Yeah.
amazing. Amazing Photoshop work, amazing photos, all the things.
Thank
Another
you.
plug for their website and their social media. It is very impressive.
Thank you. I had nothing to do
Um,
with it, so I can promote it like that. It was actually, to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why I started doing this work. It had just been done. It wasn't even public yet. And Maggie Stuckey Ross, who's now the director of the Parks Department, but at the time was director of the foundation, she said, you're interested in this. I think you might be interested in this work that we're doing. Check out this website. It's not public yet, but I think you'll like it. And it opened with a Willa Cather quote. Oh my gosh. And of course, I'm an English major. So yes, absolutely. So, yeah, check it out. It's great. Thank you.
of course. I am going to launch our quick survey. That we would greatly appreciate if you could take the time to fill it out. Those that are in attendance, it'll just take a quick minute or so. But in the sorry, excuse me. But in the meantime, if anyone has any questions in the chat, I actually had one. You mentioned your work on the 9 Mile Prairie, which I visited for the first time last week for my ecology lab doing field work out there.
Oh yeah,
If you could touch on some of the work that you do out there.
absolutely. Yeah. So that's a little outside of one of our focus areas, but again, it's a great environment and they're doing amazing work there. So are you in Dave Wadine's class by chance? Or did you?
No.
Okay, yeah. He's kind of the 9 Mile Prairie guy. And I was just on a panel with him a couple weeks ago. As a matter of fact, it was kind of funny. So, what, without getting into too many details, there's some landowners out in the 9 Mile Prairie environs who are very interested in conservation and trying to sort of make sure that those natural areas can stay natural and that there's sort of a buffer to protect 9 Mile Prairie from further development and those kinds of things. And so they had contacted us to see if there's anything that we could assist with. And then we ended up sort of in conversation with another landowner who was thinking about selling some land that we would love to see conserved in one way or another. We'll just say that. And so we got involved with folks from UNL and visited and kind of put together some ideas. It was basically we were helping with brainstorming. That was sort of that technical support that we were talking about earlier. Now, I will say that when all was said and done, it didn't really work out like maybe what we had hoped, but it's not over, and it's possible that there's some opportunities that still might arise. And that's one thing I've certainly learned early on in this work is things just generally take a long time to get sorted out and figured out, and people kind of change their mind and change their mind again, and then you kind of talk and you just keep the relationships going. And then what's funny is then it's usually if someone says like, okay, yeah, we've been talking about this for 5 years, but now I want to do it right now. So then that's when you have to be able to act very quickly. And so I don't really want to get into too many details because it's kind of all, it's sort of a confidential kind of thing. But in with respect to 9 Mile Prairie, we were just providing some brainstorming and technical support behind the scenes. Is that evasive enough?
No, yes. I was just wondering. I was like, oh, I was just there last week.
Yeah. That's a really
Um,
cool facility, isn't it? It's fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, that was the first time I've been out there, but
Yeah.
amazing place. Um, Anyone else have any other questions? I know you just kind of touched on this, and I think you touched on it at the beginning as well, but how, how did you get started with Solidago Conservancy going from English to professor to this?
Yeah.
If you could touch on that.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I've always been a lover of the outdoors. I grew up in the country. I grew up outside of Blair in Washington County on a farm. We didn't really farm. We had pasture. We had horse. I was crazy lucky. I didn't even know how lucky I was. I had 80 acres of pasture to ride horses. My own horse. His name was Doc. And of course, I was a typical ungrateful kid. I just wanted a motorcycle, but I still had Doc. Anyway, I loved all that, and it was but that was always just kind of something I did just for personal enjoyment or whatever. Again, I had kind of gotten into education, and I didn't kind of get in. I got into education, and I enjoyed that too. But then, as I said, I was kind of starting to wear out from that, kind of looking to make a change. I'm not quite old enough to like fully retire, but maybe part-time. And then I have to give Maggie Stuckey Ross and Nicole Fleck-Tews full credit on this. I had known Maggie for years, and she knew a lot about me and about my background and how I grew up, where I grew up. And she just thought that I might be interested in learning more about this work. And bless her, Nicole, I'd never met before, but she loved Maggie. And I think it was one of those like, well, if Maggie thinks he's okay, he must be okay. And so I ended up visiting with Nicole. And I've told this story before. In fact, the last time I told it, it was really maybe some of the people on this call were at the Pioneers Park Friends of Pioneers Park Nature Center thing. I got kind of emotional when I was telling the story because it was sort of coming up on an anniversary of something. But the really short version of this is when it came time for my mom to move from the place where I grew up. She had lived for 50 some years, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was not unlike the picture you're seeing right now, only it was hillier, right? And she just hated to move, but she couldn't see, so she had to move to town. She was going to move to Lincoln. My sister and I live in Lincoln, and she just was heartsick about it because it was all growing up and developing all around her. And she just said, I just wish I could keep this as it is. And I don't know, what can you do, Mom? I mean, it was her main asset, so she had to sell it. And the again, I'm making this longer than I should, but she fortunately found someone who had a similar vision, a private owner, a private buyer who purchased it, and became like a weekend getaway for his huge family. They lived in Omaha, and she was so thrilled that it didn't get all torn up and planted fence to fence to fence to fence with corn every year, or get broken up into a bunch of acreages or a housing development. It's like a little nature preserve. And she's no longer living, but for as long as she was alive, it was like that. And it just made her so pleased that that had been the case. She just really lucked out. At the time, I had no idea that organizations like Solidago or other organizations that might have an interest even existed. And Maggie knew this story, and I think this is why she brought it up to me. And I thought, wow, I don't know if it would have fit, someone else's vision, like an organization. But if someone like Solidago had gone to my mother and said, Mrs. Jensen, this is a beautiful piece of land. We know you love it, but we know you have to leave it, but we'll purchase it for a fair price, and we will conserve it. We will take care of it. We will be good stewards of this forever. It would have, I mean, I can't overstate how important that would have been to her. She did manage to get lucky and find like the one person who could do it independently. And normally she was a pretty unlucky person, truthfully. Unlike me, very lucky person. So anyway, Maggie knew that story, and she never explicitly said it to me, but I think her message was, Travis, you can be that guy. And so I thought, sign me up. So here I am.
Wow, thank you for sharing. That was a beautiful story. And the work you guys do is amazing. I don't think we have any other questions. But just to reiterate one more time, if anyone hasn't gotten a chance to fill out the poll, we would greatly appreciate it. And if we don't have any more questions, I think that concludes our webinar tonight. Um, if you want to share this with someone who wasn't able to attend tonight, or if you want to watch it again, this webinar will be, excuse me, posted on our YouTube in the near future with all of our past webinars. Thank you so much for attending tonight's webinar and learning more about Guardians of the Greenway protecting Lincoln Salt Valley Greenway. And most importantly, thank you, Travis, for this
You're welcome. Thank
presentation
you.
and giving us your time and your talent and sharing new resources for us to discover in Lincoln. And I hope everyone has a good rest of your night. And thank you again, Travis, and the work you guys are doing is amazing.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Take care. And yeah, never hesitate to contact me. Thanks.
Thank you.